Welcome to Miss Martin Muses. Welcome to Miss Martin Muses, where we talk about what makes us laugh, makes us cry, makes me happy, makes me sad, or just really ticks me off. I think we're going to hit just about every single one of those this evening with Harry Potter here at the Fantasy Tavern. Harry Potter. So go ahead and pull up some ale, some non-alcoholic beer, some water, whatever you like to drink. Go ahead and let's talk some serious fantasy. We are joined tonight, as usual, by Lady Gravemaster.
Hello, I am so happy to be here, and make sure you have your butter beers and chocolate frogs ready to go.
Oh, okay, thank you. I forgot the butterbeer and the chocolate frogs. And making her debut on the Fantasy Tavern is none other than a troubled green Alasia.
Hello, good evening, everyone. So happy to be here.
Hey, so glad you made it. And I was really, really excited that you were available. I was thinking, I said, I bet you she knows this stuff. And I know that you've done some knitting, some unofficial knitting, quote unquote, because of course it's not really
even
Harry
though
Potter.
It's unofficial, I still got a strike from Warner Brothers, so that was fun.
Spies are everywhere.
Are rude.
They are. They're just rude.
It's also I know that this has virtually nothing to do with what we're about to talk about, except for the fact that they own Harry Potter, and by extension, because they own the New Line, they own Lord of the Rings.
Yep.
Can I just say it is a horrible business practice to not allow people to okay, I get it, selling merchandise. Excuse me, I get it. They have to you have to walk that fine line or whatever. It's still ridiculous to me personally because it's still getting your brand out there. Mm-hmm. But when you strike streams for using a clip of Harry Potter and the Goblet of Fire or something like that, and you're like, no, strike or claim or whatever, copyright claim it, and you're like, why? We are literally promoting your product for free.
Yeah, they're biting the hand that feeds them.
Yup.
Yeah, precisely. Well, we are going to say hi to the chat here. We have Lady T in the house. Lady T in the house. Hello, can I get a cup of tea instead? You absolutely can. Jacob Ironside, thank you for being here. Go to bag. Oh gosh, I almost said something rude. But luckily, Stig's not here to call me on it. He is up in the future asleep. Lady Marine. Oh boy, I hope I'm saying this right. Lady Marine NC, hello. Thank you for being here. If this is your first time here at the channel, please like, share, and subscribe. I'm happy to see you. Zakrot315, hello. Everyone's saying hello to each other. I believe I got everyone. Oh, a troubled green. Haha, I know who you are. All right.
Yeah, Lady Marine's my big sis. So yeah, she adopted me.
Okay, cool. Well, excellent. Well, I'm going to go ahead and put this question in the chat, but I want to bring this to you all here. Let me roll my dice. Okay. Looks like it's going to be Alasia, you're first.
Alrighty.
When did you first read Harry Potter?
So I was raised, I went to a private Christian school when I was, and I graduated from there. So my grandma was like, Uber, yeah, I see you, Steph. Yes, I know that's her nickname for me because I knit, so it's a natural nickname for me. She was like uber Christian, and it was they were very much in that mindset of this is evil. We shouldn't be letting our kids read it, blah, 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 blah. So I didn't get on the bandwagon until I think it was either the 4th or 5th movie came out in theaters. But one evening, of all things, I was waiting for the Polar Express to come on Channel 7. And Harry Potter and the Prisoner of Azkaban was on first. And at the time, I was super into Greek mythology for some bizarre reason. Me and my friends were going through a phase in high school. And I saw Buckbeak on screen, and my mom said, your eye, she will always say that my eyes got to be the size of saucers. I was just so enthralled with Buckbeak. And so then after that, I slowly started looking at more Harry Potter stuff. And then I finally asked for the books and the movies that had been released up until that point. And my parents kept telling me no. And I was and again, if anyone follows me on any of my social media, you know that I've struggled with dyslexia, and reading has always been a challenge for me. And it was the first time my parents were telling me no we're not going to get you books. And then that Christmas, they got me like the whole set. So it was, and I got all the movies. So I probably didn't start reading them until, gosh, I don't even know when the 5th movie came out, but I was well into high school, maybe like 15, 16.
Oh, boy.
And I like had to keep it a secret because my pastors at school would have like lost their minds. So yeah, but I got into it really late because just of my upbringing. But my mom has always been of the opinion it's a story of good versus evil. There's nothing wrong with this story, and she's always encouraged me to read whatever I want. So that's how I got into it. So yeah, that's my dive into Harry Potter.
Yeah, I have a bit of a similar story. I just heard about it because there was a bit of a stir among the Christians community about it, and I happened to see it because my little cousin was staying over and she wanted to see it. She was like about 13 or something, so me and my mom went. It's like, okay, let's see what this is all about. We saw the first movie, and then I read the books, and the rest is history. How about you, Lady Gravemaster?
I was 8. And maybe 9. I was in 5th grade, and our teacher read it during we would have reading hour, and so our teacher would read for 30 minutes, and then we would read independently for 30 minutes. And I had read Harry Potter. I had read Harry Potter and the Sorcerer's Stone, or the Philosopher's Stone, because I had gotten the British title so that we had something called the AR program, which was the advanced reading program. And Harry Potter was worth like 40 points. So I was like, cool, I'm going to read this because it looks like it'll be interesting and fun. And so I had started reading it, and I got to like chapter 3, and I was actually really liking it. And my teacher was like, she was like, hey, do you think, she's like, that's going to be our reading hour book. So she read it for 30 minutes every day. And then we would have our 30 minutes of reading. And then at the end of the day, we would have free time where we got to choose if we wanted to like work on homework or watch a movie, or if we wanted her to do more reading. And I just remember kids who usually just like hate reading were like begging her to read more of the Harry Potter book, but no one else in my class had read it at that point. And so she asked me if I would not go ahead, like if I could pick a different book instead. And I was like, sure. So I read Great Expectations. Yeah, she was like, can you not read that so you're not ahead of the class, because I don't want them to like come to you for spoilers or something. And I was like, sure, no problem. So my 5th grade teacher actually read it to me. And then my mom, because we're a very Catholic family, she was like, I'm going to go see what all this is about, because she'd heard the same things, that it was witchcraft and wizardry and all of these evil things. And my mom read 1, 2, and 3 in like a day. Yeah. My mom, like, I think I'm a pretty decent and avid reader. My mom has me beat. Like, it's not even a contest. It's insane how much of a reader my mom is. But she read all 3 books in literally, I'm pretty sure it was like just one Saturday. She read all 3. And she's like, there's nothing wrong with these books. Like, I've read them. I've looked into it. Like, she's like, the witchcraft, she's like, it's more of the setting. It's not the focus of the story. They just happen, like, instead of going to a private school for lacrosse or for swimming or, horseback riding, they go to a private school for wizardry and witchcraft. It's really more of like a backdrop and a setting than it is the focus of the story itself. And she was like, and she said the same thing that your mom said. She's like, it's literally a story about good versus evil. And she still to this day, even though I've told her, I'm like, Mom, you realize that is a quote from like several different philosophers throughout history. She's like, I know, but there's just the way that Dumbledore delivers it, how, it's not our abilities that make us who we are. It's our choices. And I'm like, it's, so she's always really loved that that line in particular. And so yeah, that's kind of how I got my start on Harry Potter. But I was in the lines like when the fifth book and the sixth and the seventh and all of that came out. I was in those lines at the bookstore at Walmart, wrapped around the aisles, waiting to get my copy.
Yep.
Yeah, at midnight. I'll tell you what. And then you read them all night long. You like couldn't go to sleep. And holy crud, the Deathly Hallows, that was so big and long. And I remember just like falling asleep, like exhausted, and then coming back for more when I woke up to finish it. It was loads of fun. And I think the key word here with a lot of us is, if parents are in doubt, the parents should frankly be reading the same thing that they read as their children anyways.
Yeah, absolutely.
And that ultimately at the end of the day, it is the parents who make the best choices for their own children. And I think that's in many ways the way it was for Harry Potter, except for me, because I'll just put it this way. I was just graduating from college. I think the first one came out in 1997. Am I correct on that? I forget.
I think it was I think it was published in 90. I want to say it was published in 98.
Okay, well then
yeah.
So I was just out of college. I'll put it to you that way. So I was able to read whatever I wanted to by that point. But I think that's always a good rule of thumb. Also, the aspect of the story, especially the witchcraft, etc., it wasn't like some young adult fiction where it's more, for lack of a better word, based in more of a reality or of using it to harm people. It was like it was play magic. Like you say Wingardium Leviosa, really bad Latin to make something levitate, or lumos. She was basically just saying verbs in Latin to make it. And they also made it clear that only the bad wizards used the bad magic, the dark magic. And when Harry did use it, for example, in the Half-Blood Prince, the Rictus Sempra thing, he was horrified and realized what he had done. So that's an aspect of it as well. Biggle says, I'm being told I have to read the books by a girl. Teresa, tell me it is okay not to. Well, I just said, either go by what your parents say, or if you're old enough, you make your own decision. And welcome everyone that's coming in. It's great to see you. A2D2, I love it. And every now and then the debate comes up. I mean, it's not like, for example, C.S. Lewis or Tolkien, where basically you can say, fine, just go ahead and read it. Everything about it is not problematic at all. If you're coming, I'm talking about from the Christian community point of view, where there was a lot of cautionary tales. But especially when you consider the kinds of works you see nowadays, it's like, no, this is solid stuff. And the Rowling trusted the readers to see and discern for themselves. She lets Harry make bad decisions. Harry often did bad things, but he always suffered the consequences. Actually, all three of them do. Hermione and them, and even Dumbledore, we find out, is incredibly flawed. So
I think especially if you look at unfortunately, Harry Potter is now classified as young adult fiction. And the problem with that specifically for me is because I feel like that descriptor, like, people are trying so hard to make young adult a genre, and unfortunately it is happening. And when you say young adult, it's very misleading, because it makes you think that it's a higher reading level than, say, like because it used to be on a grade scale where, I'm at a 5th grade reading level, I'm at an 11th grade reading level, I'm at a college age reading level. Well, now, they're like, it's young adult. And the thing is, lots of, particularly like you were saying, Teresa, lots of these modern stories that have magic in them, they're like, they're like, well, Harry Potter is a YA novel, so we're just following in that same footsteps, but we're going a little bit darker. Like, you hear that so much now, but when you actually look at oh man, Alasia and I, we talked about A Court of Thorns and Roses, like, oh, sweet Jesus. Like, the magic in these stories is now meant to be seductive. It's not play, it's meant to be seductive. And that's if it was like a mature dark fantasy novel, like a low, like and everybody seems to get confused when I say low fantasy. Low fantasy does not mean that it's not good. It means that you're dealing with trolls and goblins and pikes, and so like lower, like in the ground, low fantasy creatures. And you don't really have like your elves and your wizards and stuff like that, generally speaking. Or if you do, they're also like cave dwelling, or they're a different breed than what like high fantasy has. And so when you've got that dark magic in a low fantasy setting, it works because that's what the setting is for, and you know that the magic is supposed to be sort of this, not necessarily forbidden, but it's much more dangerous in low fantasy. Magic tends to be very, 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 very dangerous and deadly in low fantasy. But these I shudder to call them authors. I guess I'll just call them writers. Like they're taking the arguments, like it's like they're Frankensteining stuff. So they're like, well, Harry Potter is young adult and low, dark magic and low fantasy exists and stuff, and then we're going to put it in but we're just going to put it in an urban setting, but it's all the same, and it's really not. It's really not.
Yeah, for sure. Now, when you first started reading Harry Potter, Alasia, what character did you most like, or what caught your imagination?
Oh gosh, I think caught my imagination. Okay, well, the characters. So there are two characters that I identify with the most. I identified with Luna the most, and I identified with Lupin the most because, for all that I went to a private Christian school, like I was very much like we had our fair share of bullies, and because there were only 20 of us in the high school room, which was 6th grade to 12th grade, it was a lot harder to get away from those bullies. So I was very much, I mean, I had my 2 or 3 girlfriends, but I did really suffer at the hands of our bullies. So that was not fun. But so I loved Luna, that she just embraced her oddness. She just was never afraid of that, and she never let that get to her when people were mean to her. I just adored her soft, gentle nature, but she just never backed down. She was like, no, this is who I am, and you can deal. And I just loved that about her. And I loved Lupin just for his strength. The man's been through hell, and he just kept on fighting. So I really appreciated him for that. See you, loving Luna. But I don't know. I loved this idea of the duality of the worlds. That wizards walk amongst us and we can't see them. I loved that idea of like this. It's I'm gonna butcher this so badly, but Tolkien, I think it was Christopher Tolkien, talks about the second world or the second universe. I can't remember exactly how he describes it, but it's just that that second universe or that second world is here on our own world, hidden from us. I loved that idea. I like secretive stuff. Okay, yes, promise. I love that idea of a hidden universe within our own world. So that's what really drew me in. This idea that the train takes you to this castle you can't find. I love that. So yeah.
Getting to go to school in a magical castle. I mean,
exactly.
who couldn't love that? What's your favorite, Lady Gravemaster?
So I used to quote Hermione all the time because I still am a bookworm, like to the nth degree. And I got made fun of a lot, like that scene, kind of what Alasia was talking about, how Luna sort of embraced her weirdness. You have Hermione, who's just she's not afraid to be smart, and she's not afraid to get, like, when the teacher asks a question, she's not afraid to answer because she's really confident, and she's very book knowledgeable. And I was a lot like that. Like, I mean, I still am. I'm not scared to, like, give my answer or whatever, and like, if I know what the answer is, then I'm going to tell you, and if I don't, then I'm going to go find it. But I really actually, I kind of started to fall away from Hermione, and I was like, I'm thinking Peeves is more who I'm aligned with, like the prankster who's not in any of the movies, but like, I was like, I really like that sort of, that devil may care kind of mischievousness about him. But then he turned into a real, like, an actual live prick. And then the scene, so I, like I said, I kind of fell away from Hermione because she was just she was kind of almost too perfect, and I was like, I'm not really that perfect. But then we get to the scene where Professor Trelawney is like, tells her that your soul is as dry as the pages of the books you read, not knowing obviously that Hermione is able, like everything that Hermione has gone through and everything she's faced next to Harry and Ron. And so she, like, got up and she stormed out because, and this is, of course, I want to say that's Goblet of Fire.
It might be. I think so.
The Time Turner.
Yes.
Or is that,
yeah.
yeah.
Oh, no, the Time Turner one was in. Sorry, it was in the third book.
Yeah, Prisoner of Azkaban.
Prisoner of Azkaban. So, because so in the books, she uses the Time Turner much more frequently, and like, they're like, where did Hermione go? Or like, where did you come from, Hermione? Because she's just popping up, right? But you find out that the reason that she was allowed to have the Time Turner device was because they recognize, like, you recognize that Hermione isn't going to misuse, like, for as rigid as she is and as hard as she was on Harry and Ron, and she was so, like, it was so funny because she would literally be facing like Voldemort could attack them at any moment, and she's over here worried about finals. You know what I mean? Like, she was very compartmentalized, but she always made time to grow her knowledge, and she applied that in real life, and it saved Harry, Ron, and herself and Hogwarts more than once. Sometimes, at the detriment to her own well-being. But that's when you realize that Hermione, and I mean this in the kindest way possible, and I'm not calling her a Mary Sue. Hermione was so incredibly powerful. You realize that if she had decided to misuse her abilities, there would have literally been no one that could stop her.
Yep.
Yeah, she would have definitely been very good on Voldemort's team.
Yes. So, like, that's kind of why I was like, because Harry gets those coaching conversations about how, it's not our abilities, it's our choices, and you have a great destiny, Harry. But, like, you look at Ron and you look at Hermione, and when you look at Ron, you're like, oh, he's just like the doofy ginger best friend. Like, no, Ron saved Harry's ass more than once, several times. And it's the same thing with her, like, Hermione could, quite frankly, just blow the absolute snot out of both of them if she ever wanted to. So
yeah, absolutely. And speaking of which, the big bad of Harry Potter, the big bad, you know who? Voldemort.
Yeah. He who must not be named.
Yes, yes.
I do have to say, I loved how Voldemort was known around the world and everybody knew his name, but the avoidance of saying his name was different in all the different regions.
Yeah.
He would like, you know who, or he who must not be named, or his name which we do not speak. It's like what in what world, like, I don't know. I just found it that specific detail about how it's regional.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, they did say she was the greatest, but I love how his name or his identifier without using his name changed depending on the region you were in or from, but
Mhm.
everybody still knew who you were talking about.
Yep.
Yeah. What do you think, Galasia? He who must not be named as the villain.
I've always liked him as a villain. On Lady Gravemaster's stream, there at the very, very end, we kind of mentioned what books we love. And I just got through rereading Christopher Paolini's Inheritance Cycle about the Dragon Riders. And the one of the big kind of, I mean, I have some gripes about this book, but also he started writing it when he was 15. And what was I doing at 15? Yeah. But I mean, one of the big things that I take issue with is that you don't see the big bad. Hi, McKenna. You don't see the big bad until like literally a chapter before he dies in the last book. He's there lurking in the background, but he never comes out. And he has this massive dragon. And you're like, well, I never see the massive dragon. What are they actually fighting? So I like that Voldemort is ever present. He's an ever present threat. He's not like brooding in a castle. He comes out and causes trouble. He comes out and does really horrible things. And I think that that's what I like about him as a villain. He's not staying up in the castle keep directing his minions. He does to some extent, but he does come out more, I feel like, than a lot of villains do. So that's what I appreciate about how she wrote him, is that he is an actual viable threat. He's not just something that someone just speaks about. He does make an appearance from time to time and really makes everyone's life hell.
Yeah. And when he did finally come as a person in the Goblet of Fire, it was positively terrifying.
Oh, it was awful. I almost can't watch Goblet of Fire. It's like, I just find that whole scene really disturbing.
Oh, on every different level. Different level. Yeah. And I also think it's fascinating that Voldemort is a character whose main motivation is to cheat death.
Yes.
And then in the Deathly Hallows, it was on the gravestone, the scripture verse, the last enemy to be destroyed is death, and how both characters, the hero, you had Harry and you had the hero Harry and the villain Voldemort took a twist on that, just the way evil does. It takes good and twists it. He wanted to defeat death, and the last enemy for him was death, and he created these Horcruxes, and then inadvertently, just the same way every time you try to trick fate or evil always, good always comes and does a little twist. And then Harry, the last enemy to destroy it, is death through the power of good and all that, and a little bit of Christian themes there at the end, which I thought was just very good. And I like the way she didn't just lay it on us from the very beginning. We gradually discovered it, so that when you got to the Deathly Hallows, it all made perfect sense. It was very well crafted. Yeah, what do you think about that, Lady Gravemaster, about the whole Horcrux thing and the way it was all resolved at the end?
I think that it was because, we have it usually when you're talking about cheating death and immortality and stuff like that, it's usually something like the Spaniards are looking for the Fountain of Youth, or the Crusaders are looking for the Holy Grail, or something like it's like it's a quest, and you know what you're looking for, and you're with the characters all the way, like you're with the characters on this quest. The way that Harry Potter is sort of structured, it's not so much a quest as it is just like you're living life, and these circumstances happen, and you just deal with them as they happen. You don't realize that there's like a bigger something or a bigger motivation behind it. Because Harry, like, what is it? In the Chamber of Secrets, Harry just stabs the diary because with the basilisk fang, because he needs to get rid of Tom Riddle. He has no idea that that's a Horcrux. You know, he was literally just trying to save his friends and survive. He had no idea that had anything bigger to do with a greater scheme. It was just dealing with that situation the best way possible in the moment. And when you lay it out like that, you've actually been, because the question was always like, people were always like, well, how did Harry survive? How did Voldemort really die? Like, is Voldemort really gone, or did he survive? Like, is there a piece of him still alive? And so really what you were trying to do was solve a mystery, because now you realize that, yes, Voldemort is alive, but how is he alive without a body? You know, because he takes up Professor Quirrell in the very first book, Sorcerer's Stone. You know, you're like, okay, so that's how he did it, but like, how did he survive that? Like, his body was clearly destroyed. So like, how did his soul not also vanquish? And that's when you start learning about, and because isn't it Dumbledore who said, like, I forget what professor, they talk about it, because the memory in the pensive, where Tom Riddle is asking, not Lockhart, but he's asking someone, I can't remember who, about splitting your soul, and the guy is like, and the guy who's explaining it is like, yes, it's perfectly possible to split your soul one time, and you know, it would be agony, it would be terrible. And then Tom asks about splitting it 7 times, and that's the memory. Remember, that's the memory Harry had to deal.
Yeah, gosh, the name of the professor is escaping, but I know who you're talking about. Help us out, chat.
What is his name? He likes the candy. Mom, here in chat, tell us.
So you know, but then Harry, and I forget who he's looking at the memory with, they're like, clearly this memory's been tampered with.
Yeah.
So we need the real memory.
Slughorn, that is it. That's it. Slughorn.
Yeah,
Slughorn, Professor Slughorn.
Thank you. Yeah. So you know, so Slughorn goes ahead and reveals that, yes, he did tell Tom that information. And yes, Tom did turn into Voldemort. And Slughorn had always suspected that Tom Riddle had split his soul, but he never wanted to say it out loud or admit it, because he felt like he would be admitting to guilt. Because of course, you know, like, Slughorn, like, here's this student, because remember, like, Tom Riddle was very attractive, and he was very popular, and he was suave, and you know, like, he was the favorite of all of the professors except for a few, like I think 1 or 2. And you've got you know, so now this Professor Slughorn, who never really got a second look from any of his students or anything like that, is getting all of this praise heaped on him. And you know, Tom was so inquisitive, and he was so kind, and he always wanted to know more. And it wasn't until later on down the line that Slughorn starts to get suspicious of everything, of exactly why Tom is asking what he's asking and what he plans to do with it. And then when he realizes that he has helped Voldemort to basically become immortal, you know, he tries to hide it out of shame and fear that he's going to get judged because he helped Voldemort survive when he should have died.
Yeah, precisely. And the guilt. And that was why he had altered the memory, and why that was Harry's quest. How did you think about that, the way it all worked out, Leisha?
No, I agree. And kind of going back to what Lady Gravemaster, you were saying, like, usually it's the Fountain of Youth, it's the Sorcerer's Stone, it's something that we as a society know that it's, you know, it's pulled out of like these mythic tales out of history. And the thing is, it's like, if you think of the Fountain of Youth, it's like kind of got like this, ooh, the Fountain of Youth, this is, you know, that would be cool to find. What if we did find it? What would that mean for us? But the way she set up immortality, it was like, no, thank you. I want nothing to do with that. And we need to destroy or bring down whatever, you know, can achieve that in this way. It made immortality really unappealing, because it's like, yeah, no, I'm not killing people to achieve that. No,
yeah, the way to get it was, you know, like, you had to slay a unicorn and
Yeah.
drink its blood,
Yeah.
or
Yeah.
It's
you
ugly.
had to, yeah, and like, you know, there's all of this. There's very much a balance in her universe where, if for evil to do these horrific things, it has to slay
Mhm.
this basically like this pure entity of magic, or it has, you know, like Voldemort was, for I forget what book, I want to say that might have been book 6, it could have been the Half-Blood, I can't remember, but Voldemort was basically testing, like not test, but like he was sacrificing other people in his place while he was looking for the key to immortality. So all of his like his super loyal Death Eaters, you know, some of them he killed them himself because he was looking for it. Like, if he thought that your death or your torture, or, you know, you being like, or you had information or something that could lead him to immortality and more power, then you were disposable to him. Like,
Yeah.
he was loyal to nothing and no one,
Yeah.
which is really, it should tell you something that he put a piece of his soul into a snake.
Yes.
Precisely. Yeah, very satanic. And the fact that the Malfoys, as unappealing as they were in the early books and all that, that they were able to see what it was
Mhm.
doing to them, and were
Mhm.
able to
Yeah. And you
Yeah,
know,
turn around
like
as
I
best as
felt
they
bad
could.
for them at the end. Like it's surprising. Like, you know, at the very end when they're all sitting in Hogwarts, they're, you know, eating and everything's said and done. It's like, oh well, maybe, you know, they're never going to be perfect and they're all probably going to be snots for the rest of their life. But you know what? They came around and they quote unquote saw the light, I think, and didn't feel the
Well-
need to continue down this dark path.
well, because you have, so here's the thing, and this is something that doesn't get talked about, and I want it so much more in books, because so we have everybody, so I'll start this off this way. Everybody talks about what an incredible mother Lily Potter was, right?
Mhm,
And she
mhm.
was, like, defending her son with her, literally her last breath, all of that stuff. And she I'm not, Lily Potter, she did what mothers are supposed to do, right? She protected her child as with up to her dying breath. And so Lily Potter was a great mom, but I will say that I think a mom who gets overlooked is Mrs. Malfoy,
Yes.
because all of the pomp and all of the circumstance and all of the vows and all of the yes, my lord, yes, the Dark Lord, yes, Dark Lord, absolutely, like all of the stuff, when it came down to it, and she realized that if Harry died, her son died, and she leans over and she whispers to him, like, is Draco alive? And Harry's like, yes. And then she's like, Harry Potter is dead. Like, quite
Yeah.
frankly, imagine if, like, she chose, in that moment, she chose her son over Voldemort. She chose being a mother
Mhm,
over
mhm,
being a loyal servant to the Dark
mhm.
Lord. That is incredibly powerful, because the reason that these people, that, like, people, when they talk about people who followed the Dark Lord out of fear, those people were not Death Eaters. They were your
Yeah.
snitches. They were your narcs. They were not Death Eaters. To be a Death Eater, you had to willingly pledge yourself, your loyalty, vow yourself to Voldemort, to the Dark Lord. And that is, if anybody who's ever been in a cult, or who has ever had like a very charismatic leader or anything like that, it is like, usually family is one of the few things, and sometimes that doesn't even work, that can break you out of that cycle.
Mhm.
Precisely.
And so for her to have recognized that, and been like, I have to choose between the vows and loyalty I took to the Dark Lord, and like, she's putting her life, her safety, her son, her future, like everything, she's putting it all on the line because her son needs her.
Yeah, well, and I think that also that this speaks, and again, I don't know if J.K. Rowling did this intentionally or not, to the power of redemption. Like that is the ultimate redemption right there, that you sold your soul to the devil, and that you turn around and say, no, I'm not going to.
Yeah, I like that. I like that you compare that both Lily and Mrs. Malfoy, that they were heroes also in their own way, and and that it was more complicated with Mrs. Malfoy. Well, speaking of making sacrifices and all that for quote unquote love, as you can see, I have changed it to always. How can we not mention Professor Snape? Alasia, my gosh, you talk about 10,100,000 million layers.
Oh,
Snape.
I know. Yeah, I adore Snape. He, like, I remember, so when I went to go get the final book, it was at Borders when Borders was still open. And when I did my pre-order, they said, okay, Team Snape, or I can't remember who the other team was. And I was like, what? And they're like, which team are you? Are you Team Snape or someone else? And I said, I'm Team Snape. And they're like, why? I'm like, because I trust him. I think that he actually is doing the right thing. I think he's helping Harry. And he's like, they were like, okay, here's your sticker. So I got a Team Snape sticker. And I got like berated for that. And then at the end, I was like, see, I told you I was right. He's a good guy. I think, kind of for me, what Snape comes down to is like, I literally have nothing to lose. Like everything I've loved is gone. I have nothing left to lose. If I throw myself into this heart and soul, then I will have, gained my self-respect back. I think he's kind of like a character, like of someone who's like, you know what, I don't care about my own life even anymore at this point. So I'm going to do everything in my power to make the situation right. So I don't know. That's kind of how I see Snape. I know that's only one layer to this guy, but when you lose everything, I think you're willing to do anything to ensure a better future. And I think that's what he ultimately did.
Yeah. Well, and I also like the way, though, it even then it wasn't quite that simple, that what Harry tells Riddle right before he kills him, Voldemort, he says he would never be your man the moment you hurt Lily. So he had such tunnel vision. He was so obsessed and in love with Lily that he did all of that to bring down the person that got her killed. How do you feel about our Professor Snape, Lady Gravemaster?
Oh yeah,
well, go for it.
I don't think you're like, okay. He ultimately, Snape was very selfish. Like that at his core, because even when Mary, here we go, look at me. Even when Lily was married, there we go. Lily was married and she had a son, and still Snape was obsessed with her. Like it was past love and it was into the point of obsession. And it was, but his loathing for James Potter, because the thing through the books, and I don't know if she pre-planned this or not. I've never seen a workup of if she planned. I mean, it makes sense to have 7 books because there were 7 years at Hogwarts. So everybody sort of just assumed that there were going to be 7 books, which there were. But you always hear, you look just like your father except for your eyes. And then you have Snape, who talks about how he hated to look at Harry because he was reminded of James, but it was Lily's eyes that stopped him from completely hating Harry. Like the thing is that his hatred for James was obviously stronger than his love for Lily, because just the way, like, and I'm not saying he had to like baby Harry or anything like that's not in his personality, but there were some things that Snape did that were exceptionally cruel that you don't do to people that you love. You might do them to people that you're like upset, like that you always get like the crazy stalkers who end up chopping up the object of their desire or whatever, but like I'm not saying we go that far, but it was clearly something outside of selfless love for Lily. Because if it had been, then he would have approached Harry differently. And you get those memories that Harry gets from Snape, and you see that Snape would talk about how he hated to look at Harry because he reminded him of James, but then he would see Lily's eyes and it was a different kind of pain and he missed her. And so it was like James was taunting him all over again. So rather than see Lily in Harry, he looked for James, and that might have been a defense mechanism so that he didn't feel sorrow. But in the end, like, no matter how you slice it, dice it, or make it sympathetic, and I love me Alan Rickman. I think he was perfectly cast as Snape. In the end, ultimately, like, Snape, he was really selfish about pretty much everything. And I can't remember exactly, and Elijah, you can correct me if I'm wrong, but basically his hatred for James is the reason why he became a Death Eater. Because
no,
I
think it was more he just got kind of pulled into that whole world, wasn't it? I mean,
yeah, because that's why Lily dumped him. Essentially, he hadn't officially become a Death Eater, but they were all like a Voldemort fan club.
Yeah, they were fan club.
So he was already going to the dark side.
So because you had the three of them, and then Snape was talking about how he and Lily could like go join Voldemort and be powerful and be together, and she's like no, and James James was like, no, that's not, that's not, this is wrong, we shouldn't, Voldemort, we're not going to join him, this is wrong in so many ways. And then I can't remember the exact words, but it's something along the lines of, in that moment he had never hated James more, and it pushed him, because Harry can almost hear or feel Snape's thoughts because he's actually in them. This is like another time where he's in the memory. He's not just looking at it in a pencil, like he's actually there. Like when he was in the Dumbledore's memory for the Ministry of Magic. So Harry is like feeling Snape's rage at James for rejecting Voldemort and Lily agreeing with James. And he was just like so filled with hatred because of that. And I just always find that fascinating that you're literally willing to, because you hate someone else so much, you're willing to just throw yourself into something that is gonna it's just straight up evil.
Yeah. Well, the one thing I think, I mean, I can see that to a certain degree, but I also think that what plays a lot into Snape's layers is that, I mean, I think he was so severely abused at home. I very much got the sense, I mean, we only get glimpses of this, but I think that he was pretty severely beaten by his father. I think that he was just a punching bag for his father and his mother, and he had to watch his mother get beaten, I think half to death. From what I gleaned, that's how I took it, is that his father was he was a drunkard and he was horribly physically abusive. And I think that she's kind of speaking to, like, this is a cycle that's having a hard time breaking itself. Like, he's trying not to go down that path, but he's not dealing with the things of his past. He's dealing with the things of his past and what's gone on at home in a really unhealthy way. And he's trying to find some sort of outlet, because I think Snape has ultimately always felt powerless, and he was looking for someone to feel powerful with. But with Lily, he felt loved. But ultimately, I think he wanted to feel powerful and to be able to feel like, I can stand up for myself, when all his whole life he's just, been pushed down by his father. So I think that is also kind of like, I agree with you. I think the way he felt about James was unhealthy, especially for an adult towards a 9. Like, how old was Harry? 11. I mean, that's unhealthy. But to me, that speaks of what he's not dealing with in his past. And I think that Snape can be a cautionary tale in that instance.
Yeah, that's a very good way of telling him. And that's what makes him such a well-crafted character, because Rowling does not allow him to become a romantic character.
Exactly.
That he was really flawed, and there was one aspect of the whole story that I found profoundly disturbing, was how Dumbledore was very well aware of all the messed up stuff that Snape had and used it as a weapon.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, I was just thank you. Like Dumbledore, he's powerful, but like Dumbledore is a grade A narcissist and just manipulator. Like Dumbledore's a sociopath. He is just as bad as Voldemort, because who looks at someone who is on who is on, like, literally crawling on their belly, coming to you, pleading for your help because, you know, the love of what they perceive to be the love of their life, has been brutally murdered by one of the unforgivable curses, and begging for help and assistance and asylum, and Dumbledore, and then that person is like, okay, but you'll do everything, like, this is what you're gonna do, and you're gonna do everything I say, and you're never gonna question it. Like, what the actual?
Yeah, well, exactly. And when Snape kills Dumbledore, Rowling writes that he had unspeakable hatred on his face, Snape, for Dumbledore, because he was aware, and he even calls him out a little bit on it in the,
like, in one of the Pensieve memories, he calls out Dumbledore, like, he literally says, "You raised this boy to kill him."
Yeah, he was even like that. Even he was like, "This is like beyond sick."
Yeah,
Dumbledore is pretty twisted. Like, honestly, like, Dumbledore is just like he and here's the thing too, Dumbledore could match Tom Riddle. He knew he could. He knew he could have put Voldemort down before he made the Horcruxes, but Dumbledore was too busy positioning other players to make himself more powerful as well. So, like, I will say, I don't think that they are as well written as the Harry Potter books, but the Fantastic Beasts, as far as prequels go, I have to say it is quite eye-opening into Dumbledore's view of the world. Because, like, when you meet him in Sorcerer's Stone, he has a baby boy in his hands, and, like, he's very gentle. He's like, this boy needs to grow up away from our world where he can be safe. Like, you don't get that conniving sociopathic vibe from him at all. You're like, oh, this is a man who genuinely cares, and then you realize he doesn't.
Yeah, well, and they do reveal that in the Deathly Hallows, that he really was tempted with what's his face? Oh my gosh, the guy who had the
Elder Wand.
Yeah, and that was why Dumbledore never took power, like, to become the Prime Minister, the Minister of Magic.
Yeah,
because he was also aware that he was dangerous, which I think makes him interesting as well. To be, basically, he knew what it was, and that what he had done with, gosh, why is that guy's name going through my
Snape?
No,
Harry?
No, not Snape. The guy he was in love with when they were kids, and the megalomaniac, because he's the star of the Fantastic Beasts and all that. But
yeah.
I don't know why it went out of my head. Help me, chat. My brain cells are gone.
Grindelwald. There you go.
Grindelwald. Thank you, Grindelwald. Yeah.
They're brothers. Yeah.
Well,
we're gonna go with that. We're gonna go with that.
Okay, but the thing is that he was totally on board with what Grindelwald was all about, and it got his sister killed.
Yep.
And so, yes, thank you, chat.
Yeah.
It's always, like, Dumbledore's a deeply flawed character. Yeah, I don't know. I waffle back and forth about how I feel about Dumbledore.
Yeah, but that's the genius of the story, where Rowling trusts the readers to have this ambiguity in the character. Let's see. All right. McKenna says, okay, I feel like this may say a lot to me to throw this out there, but Dumbledore knew there was no other option for Harry, right? For Voldemort to die, Harry had to die.
No, he didn't know that. He suspected it. Remember, Dumbledore didn't really consider Horcruxes until after Harry destroyed the diary. So when he picked Harry up as an infant, or I guess when he had Hagrid go get him, and he delivered him to his aunt and uncle, it was literally because he didn't that's why he called it the boy who lived, and he realized that this chess piece had to, call it what you will. At the time, it seems like, oh, he's trying to do the right thing, and he's telling Professor McGonagall, who, by the way, is actually my favorite character, but he's telling Professor McGonagall that, this boy needs to be protected and he needs to grow up away from all of this, because if he grew up knowing everything surrounding him, he would never be able to make the decisions for himself, and he would always have this cloud over him. And then you realize that it's really because Dumbledore wanted to hide this really powerful chess piece, because Harry shouldn't have survived. And all he knew was that this boy was going to, in one way or another, was going to be a very powerful individual, whether figuratively or actually, I can't think of the word, but figuratively or actually powerful. Dumbledore just knew that he had to make sure that he could sort of guide Harry the way he wanted, so that it would best benefit Dumbledore.
Yeah. I mean, in a way, all of these adults are incredibly selfish. Toward these children. I mean, very manipulative.
My favorite character, Lupin, I mean, he almost goes off and leaves his own baby boy once he's born, because he doesn't want to step up to being a father, and Harry is the one who puts him in his place.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Exactly. And I think some of the side characters obviously are good, because you have McGonagall and the Weasley's parents. Molly Weasley is an awesome character.
I love Molly. Mr. and Mrs. Weasley are just you see, that's the thing. Ron comes from the perfect family.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
It's loving, it's caring. He's got supportive parents. He has siblings who give him a hard time, but they'll be there for him no matter what. And Ron doesn't really appreciate that until Fred dies. Yeah. And he almost loses Ginny. And Ron goes through so much, and he loses his family. He even brings it up. He's like, someone in my family is always in danger, and it's because I'm friends with you. But that doesn't mean I'm going to stop being your friend.
Yeah. Well, there's a good moment, I know definitely from the movie, where the first time Harry goes there, and it's a house that looks like a house would be if you had 11 people living in it. Yeah, 9 kids and all that. Or is it 7 kids? Yeah, but you know what I'm saying. And they're poor, and it doesn't look very good. It's a mess. And Harry is like, this is perfect.
Yep.
You know what I mean? So, because what they had was what he could never have, is a family. They had siblings. And that Harry was robbed of that by his parents being murdered when he was a kid.
Yep.
42.
And can I just say that I love that the Weasleys have the King Arthur connection of I love that. I think that was so clever.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. I agree.
Yeah, Lady G, what's the point of rubber ducks? Yeah, a house full of gingers. Yes. And even though it was a little bit sappy, you gotta love that at the end they all got married to each other and had a bunch of kids themselves, and they all ended up going to school together later. Yeah.
When I first read that ending, I was like, why this is way too happy of an ending for the last 2.5, 3 books we've just been through. Like,
exactly. But
where
I was glad she did it though, because I think
Yes.
we needed it. We needed to
we
have some fluff.
desperately needed it,
Yeah.
especially like when Fred died, everybody felt like
Well,
and then
Tonks
to see Tonks and Lupin laying there next to each other. Oh,
Yeah.
I hated that part.
you're just like, oh my god. But like that's the thing. War doesn't spare anybody.
Mm-mm.
And it's brutal and it's ugly, and you're going to lose people. You're going to lose loved ones. And you know, these people who are out here screaming to go to war as like a first option, like not even like a third or a fifth or a seventh or even a second option, like the first, like very first option, let's go to war. Like, why? Like, what have we learned? Nothing. Obviously not, because we just keep repeating the same cycle.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Well, history is one long defeat, as Tolkien himself said.
Yes.
But for sure, and I think that they did that. They did it very well, and I forgave Rowling that happy ending, because I don't know what I would have done if it had been. And then Hermione went and got into a car crash. And it is all
No,
that
yeah, I will say, like, I was pleasantly surprised by the ending, because they, like, if anyone ever earned a happy ending, it was them.
Yes.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. Yeah. And now Soul Assassin brought this up, and I had told him that we were going to get to this. So I'll start with Alasia, since you won in the role. Or did you? Or was it Lady Gravemaster? Well, whoever won.
It was Alasia.
It was Alasia. Okay. There are different houses that they have in Hogwarts that are supposed to go along with their traits. And a person can go ahead and take the tests. What house are you from, Alasia?
So I am Ravenclaw, unsurprisingly. The bookworm over here is Ravenclaw. I when I took the test, I came up as a Raven Puff, so I was able to choose. But I was like, oh no, I'm going into Ravenclaw, and I'm pretty sure my Patronus is a swan. I'm fairly certain that's what my Patronus
That doesn't surprise me.
Cool.
Oh, thank you.
Very nice.
Yay! Well, okay, and what house are you, Lady Gravemaster?
I've never actually taken a house test.
I can totally see you in Gryffindor. Not to be like cheesy, but I can totally see you in Gryffindor.
Yeah. I've heard it. So apparently it depends on who you talk to. I've got people who are like, you're a Ravenclaw, and then others are like, you're totally a Gryffindor, and then you've got someone like, a few people are like, you are absolutely a Slytherin. And I've only ever been accused of being a Hufflepuff, and I say that, of course, with love. I've only ever been accused of being a Hufflepuff once. And I was like, well, I think everybody probably has traits from all the different houses. It's just whichever one you lean more towards. But I've never actually taken a house test or a house quiz or a Patronus one, for that matter. I never got around to it. But I guess if I had to choose a house, God, it would have to be. I have no idea, honestly. I would think it would have to be a toss-up between Ravenclaw and Gryffindor, I would think. Though,
yeah,
like,
I can see that.
Slytherins are really, like, but see, Slytherin always intrigued me, because when you read their actual, like, house qualities and traits, it's like loyalty above anything else. Because, like, I have a book. I don't know where it's at. Like, I'm out, obviously, on my phone, so I'm not even home to like find it. But I have the Hogwarts A History, like Hermione does. And so I have that book, and in there it talks about the traits of the different houses. And it tells you, like, while Gryffindors have courage and, you know, like, hearts of lions, they are often also very like, it gives you pros and cons. It's almost like a horoscope, but not quite. But it's just really funny, because when I tell people that I've never actually taken a house test, they'll be like, well, are you an Aquaries? And I'm like, I have no idea what that has to do with anything, but no, I'm not. Like, I don't subscribe to, or I don't ascribe to the astrological symbols or symbology or signs or whatever they're called. They're fun. They can be fun, but I don't actually use those. But it's always funny because nobody ever guesses what I actually am. So it just makes me chuckle.
Yeah, well, it says, Slytherin values ambition, cunning, leadership, and resourcefulness, which aren't necessarily bad traits. I think that a lot of the characters are bad that are Slytherin in the story, but we also have good characters. And Harry even tells his son at the end of the book that he would be okay if he was in Slytherin. And if you count the play, which was approved by Rowling, that his son does end up being sorted into Slytherin, but that those qualities can be those which can be abused.
Yep, it's all about how you use them. Because, like I said, I think like Ravenclaws, like that's why I was always really surprised that Hermione ended up in Gryffindor and not Ravenclaw.
Yeah, see, that's where I'm thinking that if there was some other hand behind what was going on, it knew that Hermione needed to be with Harry and Ron, because she definitely, objectively speaking, probably would have been more of a Ravenclaw. Yeah. Well, it's interesting. I used to test for Hufflepuff. And then as I continued on in my chosen career path and got a bit older, I turned pure Slytherin. So
nice.
That's too funny.
Yeah, well, I don't hide it too much anymore, but I am a teacher. I've been a teacher for very, very longer than I thought I would. More than half my life. I'll just put it to you that way. And yeah, you start off being real sweet and, thinking, oh, I've seen those movies. It's going to be fine and all that. And yeah, you got to go pure Slytherin. You got to use, ambition, cunning, leadership, resourcefulness. You can't be nice. You think you can be nice. You can't.
And I think the ones that, particularly when it comes to Slytherin, like anytime someone hears cunning nowadays, they automatically it's association. Like remarkable, people like, oh, that was remarkable. Well, what you're actually saying is it was worthy to make a comment on, but that comment could be good or bad. Like you could actually say the service we received there was absolutely remarkable and mean it in a bad way, but because of different trends and different, euphemism, like stuff, like just slang in general, it has become more of a positive connotation if you say remarkable. But cunning has the opposite, where it has become sort of associated with negative or evil personas or traits, when that's not necessarily the case. Because if you read some of, especially like the Greek stories, like the Greek hero stories, like his wit and cunning are what got him out of the labyrinth. You know what I mean? So cunning used to be, it could have been either or, but now when you hear cunning, and I almost wonder if it's because it's so similar to conniving, if it just sort of followed that same kind of pattern. But you can be cunning and not conniving.
Yeah, that there's a difference. It's the same way that you can be proud of something but not prideful. Prideful's bad.
Yeah.
Proud is good.
Yeah. Hubris, exactly. Like it's separating hubris and pride. It's separating respect for your appearance and vanity.
Yes, exactly.
Like stuff like that. So you have this very fine, this very fine line that you walk, because it's so easy to fall into the excessive of anything, whether it's pride, food, looks, whatever it might be.
And I think it's also like, with me, with being in Ravenclaw, like I'm proud of that fact, and I'm proud I'm booky. I was full on Hermione when I was in my undergrad, especially. I mean, I was like SpongeBob, sitting in the front desk with my arm always up. Like that was me. I drove people insane. but I also like understand that I am book smart. I'm not quote unquote street smart. You know, like I have friends who are street smart, but like I am that bumbling idiot who they're like, your books are not going to solve this situation. You need to put the book down. Like, you know, I am that person. So I understand my limitations, and so I think it's also important to like, just because you're brave in being in Gryffindor, quote unquote brave, does not mean necessarily you're smart, if you know what I mean. Like I think it's also a balance of like being self-aware enough to recognize the failings in your character.
Yeah. And I think that that's part of the reason why, well, at the beginning, especially in the first book, all the Gryffindors were all the good kids. As we went on, we had Ravenclaws, we had Hufflepuffs, and then we even had some good Slytherins by the end.
Yeah.
So,
and you know, it's not, and they even said, like, the way they said it in the movie was a little bit screwy, but in the book, it said, like, it was very clear that not all Slytherins become dark witches and wizards, but all of the dark witches and wizards were Slytherins. Like, all the very powerful dark witches and wizards were Slytherin, but not all Slytherins went dark. They were very...
Like, that irritated me. I kind of wish that there had been a few, like, failings from Gryffindor or Hufflepuff or something. I think that that's a little... I don't know. That one thing, and if I had to pick one thing out, that irritated me. I wish that she could have cast like some people as like, not everyone's good who comes out of Gryffindor. You know what I mean?
Yeah. I think that's why she did what she did with the play, which is incredibly flawed, but it's one of those stories where if this is what the writer wrote, this is what she wrote. And, so I've
yet to read the play, and I like. Here's the thing: I like Harry Potter, but you know, my mom is the Harry Potter nut. Like, that's her favorite IPs. She listens to the book because we have them on audio. She listens to them constantly, and they just make her happy. You know, my IP is Star Wars and Tolkien. Like Lord of the Rings, those are my two IPs. I like Harry Potter. It definitely left an imprint on me, but it's not like my life does not hinge on Harry Potter. I've seen the new movies. I've seen them once each, and I barely remember them. I like them. I enjoy them, but they're definitely not something that I go back and reread every year. I do that with Star Wars and Tolkien.
My mom and my sister, my older sister, are the same way. They're like I won't go as far as to say obsessed, but they are much more enamored with Harry Potter than I am. And they're like, my mom's like, but they're so good. And I remember, like, you know, what ended up happening was we didn't want to have to wait for the other person. Like, we all three got our own copies of the books because we didn't want to have to wait for our turn, essentially, and we wanted to talk about it. And she's like, don't you remember that? And I said, yeah, I do. I said, I'm not saying I outgrew Harry Potter. It's just, one, I found Lord of the Rings, which is a far better story. Like, as much as everybody loves Harry Potter, objectively, Lord of the Rings is a much better story.
Oh yeah, there's no comparison.
and just it, you know, it's a completely different type of adventure, but it's also like, even in the, and you know, Teresa, you know this really well because we've done our Lord of the Rings streams, but you know, even in the dark moments of Lord of the Rings, you still had that hope, that glimmer, that shine, that persistence of good. Like when Sam is telling Frodo about, you know, like Frodo's like, why do we go on, Sam? And then Sam like tells Frodo what's up, you know, and he's like, because it's worth fighting for. And you're like, God dang it, that's beautiful.
Yeah.
And like,
well, Tolkien's on a whole other level.
Yeah.
No one will.
But then you read, you know, when you read, I'm not going to lie, you know, y'all are talking about Goblet of Fire, and that is where it starts to go dark, obviously, because Voldemort comes back into his body and everything. I'm telling you right now, though, book 5 and 6 are just like, that is some dark stuff. Like, I remember finishing book number 6, and I'm like, I don't know if I even want to read book 7. My God.
Yeah.
Yeah, I totally cheated when I got book 7. I went to the back page and said, I
I
got to
did
see if
too.
it's okay. And when I
Yeah.
realized, so I read the happy ending first, and I'm like, okay.
Yeah, I
all
deliberately
right.
spoil things for myself, and I've always been that way. So I did the exact same thing.
Okay,
Oh
yeah.
my God.
And it was so, I know it's heresy, but I'll tell you, the friend I was with, she wouldn't let me have my book because she said, I will know from your face, because I'm a very expressive person. So what she did was, when we went to get the book, she took my book, I paid for it, and she held on to it. And then I went out to my car and I got into my car. She said, okay, roll down the window. She handed me the book and then she ran away because she was like, I don't want to see the expression on your face. So that's how we did it.
That's so funny.
Oh, the memories are so much fun.
Well, I remember, like, I made my mom spoil the end of Lord of the Rings for me because I read the books before Return of the King came out. I was like, I have to know Pippin's okay. I have to know Merry's okay. So I made her read it, and she's like, yes, they're fine. Here, go read. I was like, okay.
Yeah. Okay, I'm just going to cut you off here because Lady Gravemaster does have to go. So Lady Gravemaster, if you wanted to give yourself a little bit of an outro, where we can find you, etc.
Well, thank you. I'm sorry that I got a dash, but I've got some stuff that I gotta go take care of. But I am here on YouTube under Lady Gravemaster. I come and bombard Teresa's channel with my insanity and go off on my tangents. But I do my Thursday nostalgia stream show. I'll have more videos dropping now that I've hopefully figured out how to I've now figured out how to make Camtasia work better for me. And I'm on Twitter and Instagram under the same handles. And like I said, I've got my Thursday one, but I float around different channels and I do a lot of stuff with Teresa. So check me out. But Alasia and I are going to have to do a book club stream here because girl, you're never going to believe what happened.
Oh, I need to know the things. You're going to have to tell me.
Yes, the things. So, but I love all of you. Thank you guys so much for being here. And Teresa, as always, it was an absolute pleasure and honor to be on your channel. Thank you so much.
Well, thank you for being here, and you go do what you need to do, and have a great evening.
Thank you. You too. Bye.
Okay,
Bye.
goodbye. Yeah, so if you haven't already subscribed to Lady Gravemaster, please do so. She just got monetized, so next time she's on, go throw some money at her. You don't feel right posting other. Oh, okay. Sure. Yeah, just post what you're comfortable with, especially Soul Assassin is great. You got the YouTube channel, and that's good. And Lady Gravemaster has many shows. I think her regular show is on Thursday nights where she does kind of a retro thing, and she and Stig have something coming up. I don't think they've decided on the date yet, where they do a blockbuster movie, and I believe it is 1982. One's going to be Conan the Barbarian. The other one's going to be An Officer and a Gentleman. So please go ahead and make sure that your bell is turned on for her. And a troubled green, Alasia. Where can we find you? What's going on with you?
So this coming Tuesday, myself and Untamed Mando will be doing our second installment of our Literary Soul Sisters podcast, or whatever. I'm still getting used to this whole streaming thing. We're going to be talking about like the first-ish half of the Silmarillion. We're going through pretty much all of Tolkien's works, or as much as Tolkien's works as we can, leading up to September, so that we have a firm ground to stand on. And so the second stream will be on my channel this coming Tuesday, 7 p.m. Central, on the 15th. You can also find me at A Troubled Green on both Instagram and Twitter. And then my Bookstagram account, I just changed the name from T-Bucks Yarn for a variety of reasons to A Troubled Green's Library. So you can follow me over there for any of my book recommendations and occasional rants where I piss everyone off, and it's a lot of fun.
Yikes. Okay. Well, there you go. Yes. Please follow A Troubled Green. She also does some great knitting. And she did a stream with me a little while back where we she showed off her knitting, and that was loads of fun. And she does those rebellion things as well.
I will never take so many pre-orders again ever as long as I live. I'm actually now legitimately getting concerned about my wrist, so I think I'm going to have to take a very long break over the summer and come back in the fall with new things, maybe a new website. We'll see.
Well, okay then. Okay.
Yes.
it suck when you're so successful?
I know it's such a burden, but my wrist is like either you stop or you go to the doctor. You choose.
Exactly, yeah, and we do need to look after ourselves. I'm a crocheter, and I'm also a musician, so I totally abuse everything that's to do with my upper body. But well, and here on Miss Martin Muses, the streams that are coming up, my next big one is we are starting The Hobbit. We are starting The Hobbit next Saturday. We will be discussing The Hobbit for 2 weeks. We're going to do it in 2 parts, not as in detail as we did with The Lord of the Rings, because, it's not as deep, but it's a lovely, lovely story. And then we're going to tackle the Silmarillion as well.
Nice.
So we're
basically going backwards.
Yeah, exactly. You're going forwards, we're going backwards.
Yeah.
And you can't get too much of this stuff. And I think that we can all, as a community, help each other out, get through these stories, and present to people what Tolkien presented.
Exactly.
It's so beautiful. And we know there's a lot of stuff that shall not be named, but let them spit into the wind. Who cares?
Yep.
We will always have these magnificent stories. Also, what else is coming up? Oh, Irish movies. I'm going to do Irish movies on the triple review. Yeah, on the Ides of March. Wednesday. Yeah, we're going to the 3 movies that myself, let's see. Maury and Eddie are going to be reviewing is The Commitments.
Okay.
I love that movie. I love all these movies. The Commitments, Waking Ned Divine, and The Guard.
Nice.
Yeah. Yes. Stig usually does join us on those, but he's not an Irish movie person, being Mr. Norway. So, but go ahead and subscribe to him. Tick him off. He always says he doesn't want subs, so go ahead and give him some subs as well. So we're going to be doing that, and I think that's all I have coming up. I don't know if I'm going to be doing a double pick on Monday. We shall see. But please go ahead and like, share, and subscribe on Miss Martin Muses, or follow me on Twitter. I just like to muse upon on everything, and right now I've just been doing a lot of focus on what we love. Like last night on the double pick, we all talked about war movies. So everyone brought 2 of their favorite war movies, or war movies they think that people should see. So go ahead and check them out. I would definitely appreciate that. And Lady T, you've seen her in the chat, my mod here. She often joins us as well on these discussions on Saturday. So wow, this was a really good discussion. This was loads of fun. We could have gone on for several hours. Maybe we could do a part 2 sometime. But yeah, I think that this was really great. And I do appreciate everyone that showed up in the chat. Soul Assassin, Keck44, Tamara, good to see you. Let's see. We had Bosch. You keep changing your name on me. So I said Soul Assassin, Zakrot315. Loads of people came in the chat. Lady T, always good to see you. If I missed anyone, I sincerely apologize. I do appreciate all of you that do show up. McKenna, of course, thank you. And that's a channel that I've just discovered with all this Lord of the Rings stuff, and I've been loving every minute of it. It's really good. So have a great evening, everyone. Have a great evening.
Yes, have a wonderful evening.
And be certain. Oh my goodness. I can't think of. I was trying to think of something Harry Potterish, and it just went out of my mind. I was gonna say, be certain
to leave
not
the
get
light
too...
on.
Yeah. Be certain not to make any Horcruxes. That always turns out badly. Okay.